and classmate. This video is all about RNA and DNA. And we're gonna talk about their similarities, differences, and their importance. And are you ready? Let's go! But first, what is RNA and DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA is a molecule that contains the biological instructions that make each species unique. DNA, along with the instruction it contains, is passed from adult organisms to their offspring during reproduction. While ribonucleic acid or RNA is a molecule similar to DNA. Unlike DNA, RNA is a single-stranded. An RNA strand has a backbone made of alternating sugar or ribose and the phosphate groups. That attack to each sugar is one of 4 bases.
Wow!
And that is adenine for A, uracil for U, cytosine for C, or guanine for G. And now, it's time to additional knowledge!
Wow!
Do you know there are 3 main types of RNA that involved in protein synthesis? And they are messenger RNA or mRNA, transfer RNA or tRNA, and ribosomal RNA or rRNA. That rRNA forms ribosomes which are essential in protein synthesis. A ribosomes contains a large and small ribosomal subunit. Do you know there are 2 types of DNA in the cell?
Wow!
And those are autosomal DNA and mitochondrial DNA. Autosomal DNA are also called nuclear DNA. It's a package into 22 paired chromosomes. In each pair of autosomes, one was inherited from the mother and one was inherited from the father. Now, let's talk about the importance of DNA and RNA. Let's start. The DNA serves 2 important cellular functions. It is the genetic material passed from parent to offspring, and it serves as the information to direct and regulate the constructions of the proteins necessary for the cell to perform all of its functions. The DNA contains the instructions needed for an organism to develop, service, and reproduce. And to carry out these functions, DNA sequences must be converted into messages that can be used to produce proteins, which are the complex molecules that do most of the work in our body.
Wow!
Next is RNA. RNA also plays an important role in regulating cellular processes, from cell division, differentiation, and growth to cell aging and death. Ribonucleic acid or RNA is an important biological macromolecule that is present in all biological cells. It is principally involved in the synthesis of proteins, carrying the messenger instructions from DNA, which itself contains the genetic instructions required for the development and maintenance of life. And now, we're done with the importance of RNA and DNA. And now, let's go to their similarities and differences. Do you know what is the similarities and differences of RNA and DNA? Let's find out.
First, we have similarities between DNA and RNA. Both DNA and RNA can act as genetic material. Both are polymers of nucleotides. Both DNA and RNA are linear structures with secondary and supersecondary arrangements. Both contain purines and pyrimidines. Both DNA and RNA contains pentose sugar. In DNA and RNA, the adjacent nucleotides are connected by 3 to 5 phosphodiester bonds. Both DNA and RNA absorb UV light at 260, and both DNA and RNA contains hydrogen bonds. And here's the differences between DNA and RNA. DNA usually associated with histone proteins in eukaryotes,
Wow.
while RNA is not associated with histone protein. DNA follows the Chargaff's rule, while RNA does not follow the Chargaff's rule. DNA occurs as double helical conformation, while RNA usually occurs as irregularly folded structures. DNA is highly stable molecule, while stability of RNA is less. Usually, DNA is double-stranded structure, while usually RNA is a single-stranded. Sugar molecule in DNA is deoxyribose, while sugar molecule in RNA is ribose.
Wow.
The nitrogen bases of DNA are purines, adenine and guanine, pyrimidines, thymine and cytosine, while nitrogen bases of RNA are purines, adenine and guanine, pyrimidines, uracil and cytosine. DNA purine to pyrimidine ratio in DNA is always 1:1, while RNA purine to pyrimidine ratio highly varies.
This is where our discussion about DNA and RNA ends. Thank you for watching this video, my friend. I hope I made you happy and you learned a lot from my video. I'm Eliza S. Marcelino from St. Tudor, reporting about the importance of RNA and DNA, similarities and their differences.